Mayor Seibel, City Council, Mr. Dressler, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I want to talk a little bit about some of the programming that we are doing at the Regional Commission this year, some things that directly support the City of Covington, and a couple things that we've got coming up in the year to come. And part of the reason is we are in the process of our annual work program development, so this is the time of year where we go to our member localities and ask what are some needs, projects that you know are going to be coming up in the next fiscal year, July to June, things that the Regional Commission may be able to help with, whether those are very well-defined projects or just general needs that we want to be able to create space to support you in the coming year. So I want to highlight some of the things we're doing as maybe examples of the breadth of work that happens at the Regional Commission, and may spark some ideas or just identify some needs that you've got that we can assist with. I always like to start with a little bit of a refresher for those who aren't as familiar with the Regional Commission and the work that we do with our member localities. We are one of 21 planning districts in the state. We are directed by code to address issues of greater than local significance. So that is, for us, that's a lot dealing with transportation, economic development planning, environmental work, anything that goes beyond your boundaries, your municipal boundaries, or issues regionally with your neighbors, with other folks in our service area. And these are any kind of challenge or opportunity. Our job is to help identify those and figure out what are the most efficient, cost-effective ways to address those things, whether it's to take advantage of opportunities or whether it's to kind of develop programs or projects that address a problem or a need. And by working multi-regionally, we can create the most, again, cost-effective ways to address those issues. I think we're a pretty good value. So for every dollar that we bring in local dues, we are able to leverage that against $11 in state, federal, and other resources. So that's money that comes right back into the community, either through the activities that happen at the commission, or, as I'll show in a moment, getting something built, like through the Virginia Housing, PDC Housing Development Program. So we can take that money and get something tangible on the ground in addition to the general planning and programming work that we do. And when I say we, I do mean we, the staff. I have a lot of very talented staff at the commission, but the commission is you guys. It's our elected officials and our administrators and our member governments. And your participation, particularly Mr. Seibel as a member of the commission and Mr. Dressler, your participation in all the boards and committees and work groups that happen, that is really how we get things done and know what you need to create at the commission to figure out how to deliver the right service plan, project, etc. for you. So we don't get that done alone, and we really appreciate your participation and engagement with our work. I'm going to highlight just 3 general kind of projects that we're working on, again, to show you some of the breadth of what happens at the commission. The first is our work in housing. This kind of started with, in 2021, we received $2 million from the Virginia Housing specifically to support the construction of affordable housing units in our service area. So we got to take that money, define what kind of projects that we wanted or thought were needed in the region, come up with a way to award that money, and took in applications from across the region. I'm very excited that one of the applications we were able to fund was the Rivermont School project with Landmark. So Landmark made an application, and we were able to provide $400,000 for that project for the redevelopment of the school. It's particularly exciting for us because that's the only adaptive reuse project that we received an application for. So we received a number of single-family homes, other kinds of projects elsewhere in the region. But this was exciting to be able to take a building and put it back into productive use, as well as create affordable multifamily units for Covington and for the region. More broadly, we are looking at what we can do to address housing shortages across the region. I hear this from almost all of our member governments in some way. It is a regional problem, it's a state problem, it's a national problem. So we're looking at what we can do as a regional commission to address some of the impediments to getting more housing on the ground. We're taking some of the funding we get from the Appalachian Regional Commission, from the Economic Development Authority, and a new federal commission, the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, to figure out what role we can play in helping you and helping developers in the private sector get more housing in the region. The two activities that we're really focused on right now are a developers roundtable, so directly working with the private sector, with developers, construction companies, etc., figuring out what's stopping them from getting stuff built, and seeing what we can do, whether that's education, whether that's bringing new tools on board, convening other regional stakeholders or other regional partners, utilities, whoever that happens to be, to figure out what's causing those impediments and if there's any way that we can help address those. The other activity that we're looking at is the creation of a regional revolving loan fund to help bring more financing options. That's one of the things we hear a lot, is simply reasonably priced financing for developers is a big barrier. So we're going to be looking at a regional revolving loan fund to support affordable housing construction. So those are some things that happen now. I was very excited to hear the news about the Rivermont School moving forward, so we're excited that that's coming to fruition. And some of these are going to go through this year into the next. Another area of work we're doing right now is the Roanoke Valley Collective Response. This is a project, it's a program that started in 2018 as an all-volunteer program in Roanoke. It came under the Regional Commission in 2021 as a formal program, and despite it still bears that Roanoke Valley name, but its focus really is our entire service area. So we're going to probably change that name so that's more clear. But this program is a collective effort of all kinds of people. So healthcare providers, nonprofit leaders, local and state legislators, folks that are in recovery currently, anyone who's been involved in the opioid addiction crisis that's been really prevalent in our region. And what their goal is much like the Regional Commission, is to bring those folks together and figure out what are the critical projects, programs, partners needed to get services stood up really quickly and address this challenge in our region. And this is everywhere from at the front end of something in crisis, working with emergency rooms or medical providers or law enforcement on how to deal with someone going through addiction at the very front end of their cycle, to someone who's gone through recovery and maybe coming up against barriers such as not being able to get housing or workforce training or other things to keep them stable. So it's the whole kind of spectrum of someone going through that crisis. There's a couple ways that program can be of use. One is we've just got all those experts in the room. So any locality that is looking for assistance, technical assistance, connections to the right experts, the right programs to address a need, those folks live at the commission and we can help make those connections. The other more direct areas that we've been really working very closely with the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority on accessing those funds for our municipal partners. So that can either be through the direct allocation you receive as a city, if you're looking for effective ways to use those funds that you maybe just don't have a handle on what that is, we can provide the technical assistance if you want to look at that. But more broadly, the OAA has this entire pot of funding, these cooperative partnership programs. So this isn't your allocation, this is for funding for 2 or more localities who are addressing the regional problems. So it doesn't tap into your funding, it actually brings new dollars to the table. And that's where we can really help, is convene around you and your neighbors and other needs in the region to develop those big multi-jurisdictional programs. So this last year, was the first year the OAA was making grants. It was a little bit of a bumpy road, so we kind of did a beta test with the city of Roanoke on going through that grant writing process. And working with the city, we were successful at getting over $700,000 in OAA funding to the region. Part of that was through a cooperative partnership program to fund the collective response for the next several years. And the other was 2 or 3 programs at the city of Roanoke through their direct allocation. So that next application period is in April, so we're here if you need assistance. Those folks are actually meeting tomorrow to bring a bunch of those partners together to identify what are some of the key needs that we've got right now. They're actually going to be entering into a project with Virginia Tech where they're going to map who's doing what, who needs more resources, who has a program that not enough people are taking advantage of, who has a program that's doesn't have enough money to do what needs to be done, so we can create some shortcuts to bringing projects to you and other partners to say, here's some of the things that our healthcare providers and law enforcement and other folks in the region have identified as possible priorities to go after more OAA funding. So that is happening as we speak. And the last program I want to highlight real quick is the Ready LDD program from the Appalachian Regional Commission. And where this is coming from is, you're no doubt aware, in the last couple of years, there has been a ton of money that has made its way through a number of federal programs. And unfortunately, how most of that money has been budgeted and programmed is they've created these gigantic, nationally competitive grant programs. So rather than, say, allocating it where the need is, they say, well, we're going to award some big thing, but the whole country can compete for those funds. Well, so what the ARC has acknowledged, we see it, and I'm sure you see it, is our smaller communities simply cannot compete. We don't have the resources, we don't have the expertise to go up against a locality that maybe has a staff of grant writers that work for that locality. We can't compete with the Hampton Roads if we're going after the same pot of money. So what the ARC has done is working with their regional partners, create these capacity building programs. And what we've done with that is we've got $100,000 over the next 2 years where we've assembled a bench of professional grant writers who all have experience successfully writing federal grant programs. Some of them are local here to the region, some of them are for elsewhere in the country, but they all know how to write a grant for the federal government. And what we can do, those folks are reviewing their contracts right now. We hope they will have been signed by the end of the week. But this is going to be as easy as if Covington has a project and you know that there's a federal program that matches, just call me up, I'll match you with the grant writer, and we pay for that person to do all the work to get that grant submitted. And that can be anything from you have a need, you have a grant, you know it's a perfect fit, to there's something that needs to be done, or maybe a grant opportunity comes across Mr. Dressler's desk. He's like, this is a really good opportunity, but we're not quite sure what a good fit is. Those grant writers can actually meet with you, meet with stakeholders, do community meetings, help scope out a project if there's not something that's clear. So it can be anything from a plug and play ready to go to we don't want to miss this opportunity, but we're not sure what the most competitive kind of project is. And we've got the funds to pay for those folks at least for the next couple of years. So we'll have more information again hopefully next week, but that should be a really easy thing. We're excited to be able to offer that support to our ARC communities. As a matter of fact, we already are talking with Alleghany County on a potential EV charging station project. There's a lot of money out there for charging stations. So they've reached out to us, we may be able to plug them. One of our grant writers, she works for a company that does specifically clean vehicle and electric vehicle stuff. So we're gonna see if that's a good fit. So I could go on all night about all the stuff we do, but I wanted to kind of go over those 3 areas just to show you we're in housing, we're in grant writing, we're working in human services and healthcare. Those are some of the things that we've done, some things that are coming up. And I mentioned all of the grants that are coming through the federal government. We're paying a lot of attention to those. It can be overwhelming, the amount of stuff that's coming across folks' desks. So we're really focused on working with the grantors to identify where we as a region or where our localities are most competitive. So as an example, we're currently working with the town of Rocky Mount in Franklin County on a RAISE grant, which are the old hybrid transportation grants, because we identify there's 2 census blocks in our whole region that can get the money with no local match and are the most competitive, and one of those census blocks is in Rocky Mount, and one of those is in the city of Roanoke. So we thought that's the best place to start, so to find a project that matches, because that's going to be some of the most competitive projects. So we're working with them right now on getting that kind of a grant written. I mentioned EV charging stations. We are starting an EV charging station market study for our whole region right now. And one of the focuses of that is to help our localities be able to understand what needs to be done to get those stations installed from a grid perspective, from accessing money. But our real concern is to make sure our rural localities don't get overlooked, that we don't put all the charging infrastructure like right on 81 and there's no reason that these people, more people are getting EVs. We want them to come to Covington. We want them to come to Clifton Forge. We want them to come to our small communities. Selfishly, for me, they have to charge that car for 20, 30 minutes, and we want them to stay in your community and go out to eat and spend money and get to know your community. We don't want them to just have, I understand Buc-ee's is great, but we don't want them to necessarily just stay at a Buc-ee's somewhere. We want them in our small towns and communities. So that's one of the things that we're looking at with that market study is how can we best enable smaller communities to access those funds, get those stations installed and market them and make sure people can come to your communities. As always, we do tons of grant writing support, technical support. If you need data, assistance on plans, our staff is here to help. We're constantly taking requests like that and working throughout the year on all kinds of projects. And then one of the last big things that we're working on right now is we have a lot of great relationships with some federal programs. I mentioned Appalachian Regional Commission, EDA, Department of Transportation, but there's a lot of resources out there, technical support, grant support, etc., from other federal agencies that we don't have a strong relationship with. So we're trying to build that capacity, build those relationships so we can bring resources from HUD or USDA or EPA or other sorts of programs to support our communities and again, make more investment in our localities. So that's ongoing work to be able to build that capacity. So that's all I had to kind of give you a whirlwind tour through what's happening at the Regional Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions about those projects or anything else that may be happening at the Commission, but primarily I just wanted to come show you what we're doing, but thank you for your participation. We're always excited to be able to work with Covington, come visit, so we appreciate your participation and support, and if there's anything we can do to help, that's what we're here for. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do y'all have any questions?
Where's the charging station going?
We do, I'm not sure exactly. The county has worked with Andrea Garland, who's kind of our sustainable transportation. I think it has something to do with the car dealership, but I'm not specific on the location. I don't know that they have a location. I think they maybe just have a concept.
Andre gets a chance to give us a call.
Okay. Okay.
Would like to invite you up sometime for a couple hours one day.
Mm-hmm.
We got some pretty exciting things going on in Covington right
Sure.
now that we got a little smile on our face about some direction we're heading.
Yeah.
So, we encourage you to come up and please stick around at least through the first presentation from the city manager this evening. I think you'll get a kick out of that.
Okay, excellent.
It's pretty good.
Okay. Well, thank you. And if there's ever anything we do, please don't hesitate to give me a call. We're happy to help. So thank you.